Alex, today we're talking about the Balance is Better principles, and one of them is around collective attitudinal change. So specifically, sports leaders, coaches, administrators, parents, and caregivers involved in youth sport must collectively lead attitudinal change. For those of us who might be new to Balance is Better, what do we mean by attitudinal change?
Yeah, thanks, Hamish. It's really important that people understand the true value of sport in our lives and in our communities. So there's a much bigger picture than winning every game and winning from a young age. And that's just about the place that sport has in terms of the well-being of our young people and ourselves as humans later on in life. So it's much bigger than a win or a loss. So if I start to unpack that a little bit more, we believe that a quality sport experience can add value in a way that other physical activity can't. So we talk about happier, healthier sort of people. When we talk about those words, well, that's about, your physical health. I think people understand the benefits of, sport and physical activity in that way in terms of our heart and our health. The mental health side of it's been spoken about more and more now, especially as we go through this COVID environment, and how exercise is so important to our mental well-being, our spiritual well-being, but also in terms of cognitive function and academic achievement for young people, how we function in our roles at work and communities. Life skills in which sport, a quality sporting environment can nurture when we start to think about teamwork, leadership, self-confidence that can develop. So there's so much more there. And then you could even go into better connected communities. And we talk about the social networks, the sense of belonging and camaraderie, not just the athletes, but the communities around sport. I've just had a breakup from my young son's under-8 football where we came together, had a parent versus kids game, and then a shared lunch. And that sense of belonging and camaraderie is just pretty special. And sport has a great opportunity to do that at multiple levels. It just brings communities together and you can shape the right behaviors. So when we start to think about collective attitudinal change, it's about saying, well, this is why sport is so great. And this is in a sense, the secret sauce that sport can provide for communities. But unfortunately, that value is not seen, or it's not seen for long enough in tamariki and rangatahi child and youth sport, because these high performance behaviors creep in and there's too much of an emphasis on winning, which leads to not a quality experience for everyone. So we start to get into a place where we talk about social change or cultural change, attitudinal change. So it's trying to lift this up a little bit more so people understand that, yes, we want people to go out and win and we want people to enjoy their sporting experience, but that's not the be all and end all. There's much more important factors at play here in the role that sport has in our lives as people.
So listening to that and playing it back, what I'm hearing is there's a value of sport piece, and that probably listen to the so what, or the purpose that sport plays in people's lives. And I think too often we don't bring that conversation or that thinking front and center to actually going, hey, this is either underpinning or overlaid over the top of everything we see. And so to me, there's a piece around critically reflecting on, I guess, why do we do the things we do? And we can kind of layer that into sport. It's interesting, I've seen people do this and have some good eureka moments. So an example might be talking to the winning conversation and actually asking them, well, what's important in sport for you and how do you measure that? If you want people to become more critically reflective and think more about the values of sport and all the things we've talked about, and make sure that it's more present in how they think about sport, how they support it, how they design it, what can people do? How can we help people to become more critically reflective?
Yeah, look, it's a tricky question. I suppose I'd start with, well, it depends if someone's sort of gate to change is open. So if they're willing to change and they're open, they're willing to hear and listen to a conversation or a perspective that's different from their own, that's probably a great place to start. It's really hard to change someone if they don't think there's another way and they stay wedded to, their belief base, whatever that's been sort of formed on. It's sort of like you can take a horse to water, but you can't make it drink. So really, if someone's open to sort of listening and hearing the discussion and conversation and the evidence, then that's a great place to start. We had here in New Zealand, we actually had Ken Martell from US Hockey out a few years ago, and he spoke about the challenges in this place of, well, attitudinal change to sport, how we measure success and looking at success differently. But a lot of people think they know, and if they think they know based on previous experiences, but a term he used was, do you think or do you know? We know, we've done the homework, we've done the evidence, we've got the research. So it's how we shift that conversation. So, really hard for people to be critically reflective if they're not open to thinking differently. If I was to give them a few tips, I'd just say, be open to the conversation. Talk to your kids, talk to the kids, ask them why they play. They'll tell you the top reasons. This comes out on all research: to be with your mates, to enjoy yourself, to learn new skills. It's not the winning. They'll tell you what they enjoy. Think about what you want for your child. What do you want from them? As a parent, what do you want from them? Do you want them to be the next Tiger Woods, actually, or do you want them to shape some really positive habits, be happy, be active through their life and be healthy? Because that's such a challenge in this day and age for parents. So just really think about what actually happiness looks like for your child and consider that. And then engage, like educate yourself. So, be curious, go and find more information. There's plenty to read on our site and many others. There's lots of videos, there's case studies and stories of some of our top athletes that actually support these messages. So be curious and go and learn. It's tough if you don't want to change, or if you think, your way is right. I think it just starts with being curious and wanting to learn and being open to some different perspectives.
Awesome, Alex. Thanks for that. There's some fantastic advice there. I might put you on the spot a little bit, because I think there's a great segue on your last point around being curious. For people who want to become more critically reflective about youth sport, what are perhaps 2-3 key questions they should try ask themselves, or try keep front and center in terms of how they think about youth sport?
So I'd probably just start with, what do the kids want? So, you start with asking the kids, and then once you get that answer, maybe asking themselves, what do I think the kids want? And look at the gap or the discrepancy. and what does this mean? What does this mean for me? And maybe that's then about, well, I need to start changing some of my behaviors. I need to start doing things differently. And that might be about how I conduct myself on a sideline. That might be about the questions I ask when the kids get home. That might be stepping off on some of those conversations that I have that are unnecessary, that might be driving them out of sport. There's many places you could go, but there's probably some simple questions first that start with the kids and start with yourself, of sort of reflecting around, how does that sit with what you believe and think?
Awesome. Thanks for that, Alex. Some great advice there. We'll drop some additional links to relevant resources in the show notes. Before we sign off, any final words from you, Alex?
Oh, probably one thing I didn't touch on while we talk about attitudinal change or social change, cultural change, however you look at it. We talk a lot about changing the measures of success. So it's promoting some of those other things we spoke about. It's too easy to measure development by a win or a loss versus taking a longer term view around appropriate development. The one thing I'd probably throw in here, we talk about attitudinal change, but it's the word at the front of that in the Balance is Better principles, which is collective. So collective for us is meant, actually, it's not about each sport fighting this by themselves. It's about sports working together to tackle change. And something that served us really well is actually sports seeing that they're fighting the same common enemy here, and attitudinal cultural change. So rather than tackling it within their own sport, actually tackling it together with other sports at national, regional, and local levels has actually been significant in terms of some of the momentum and the shifts we're getting here. So, we'll go back to 2019, where we had 5 sports sign a collective memorandum of understanding to tackle Balance is Better aligned changes, to say enough's enough, we know better, we've got to put the kids first. That's now grown to 15 sports that have signed that at national levels. We're seeing regional MOUs around season transitions. We're seeing local networks, schools, people changing things. So that's a really constant sort of message around working together with other sports, councils, other providers, schools. It's so important in this change. And it's something that, again, is hard because we're really busy in our own sport or our own context to create and make space to work outside of your boundaries or swim outside of your lane. But our leaders are doing that, and we're seeing great results. And I think it's something that here in New Zealand is sort of a competitive advantage, something that we're doing well, and that is probably really hard for other countries to replicate given the size, scale, and numbers. So that's probably just another point to add.
It really relates to me around the value and being able to do these things alongside other people. And I think there's a real value whether you're a parent or a coach, and being able to first just starting to have conversations and getting new perspectives through to leaders of different organizations, people working in clubs, schools, regional sport organizations, national bodies, to be able to look over the fence and see how else are people thinking about this. And then also, as you said, celebrating collectively some of the successes that we do see in terms of change. We'll finish it there. Thanks again, Alex, for your time. As I said to the viewers, we'll provide some additional notes and links below.